Hey guys, welcome back. This is part 2 in the first series in the team building series, the first video. So in part 1, we talked about the definitions of trust and why it is so important to make sure that we have these basic understandings of trust. Because when we don't have these basic understandings, then we allow people back into the house that we shouldn't. We keep people on the team that we shouldn't. We say, oh, you know, I trust you, but then we can't figure out why these behaviors are happening over and over and over again. So in part 2, we're going to talk about those specific behaviors of what builds relational trust and what destroys relational trust. So the first part here, maybe I should stand this way. Actually, let me just move out of the way completely just for a second so you can take a screenshot with your smartphone. I apologize that this is really hard to see. But it is what it is for now until I get a full-on camera crew. So the behaviors that build relational trust, setting and keeping boundaries like we talked about in part 1. This is really, really important because we want to have personal boundaries, which the way that John Townsend and Henry Cloud explain it is that we want to keep the bad out and the good in, right? So we always want to say no to the good or to the great and then yes to the best, because there's a lot of things that we can say yes to, but we don't need to say yes to everything. We only need to say yes to certain things to keep our plate clean, right? And so when we have personal boundaries, we're able to get involved in projects that we should be, and then say no to the ones that just keep us busy, just keep us, spinning our wheels, and then that we can't get anything done, and we're a master of everything and jack of all trades and master of none. So when we have personal boundaries, that builds trust, right? Because it tells people that you are in charge of yourself and you're not just, kaping off in 100 different directions trying to be everything to everybody, which you can't. There's no way to do that. So, and then boundaries of other people. How well do you keep other people's boundaries? So there's a question. It says, if somebody says no to you, or if you say no to somebody else, how do they react? How do you react when somebody says no to you? That's a really good test to decide how strong your relationships are. If a person that you're with or someone on your team cannot handle your no, that's a really good indication that they are not a safe person, and that's not a safe relationship, right? Because they don't have boundaries. So building relational trust is setting and keeping your personal boundaries, not only for yourself, but of others. Consistent and predictable behavior. So if we are one way on Monday and another way on Tuesday or Saturday, that doesn't build trust. So when we're consistent in the calm, and then when the storm hits and we're consistent in the storm, that's when we build reliable relational trust. When we have that even keel, we have the same boundaries in the peace as we do the storm, the same set of moral and ethic standards in both the peace and the storm. We're going to keep those systems all the way through, right? We're not going to say like, oh, well, keep it today and not tomorrow. A person that can keep the systems steady no matter what's going on builds relational trust. We talked about this in the first video, allowing mistakes to be made without judgment or shame, and it focuses on the lessons in order to encourage failing forward. So if people are not making mistakes, they're probably in their comfort zone. They're not trying anything new. They're not experimenting or being creative. They're just staying in the safe zone, right? Safe zone doesn't raise profits. It doesn't raise employee morale. It doesn't raise productivity, right? The safe zone is just mediocre, and it's just very, I don't want to take any chances, right? So people need to make mistakes. If we're not making mistakes, we're not growing. The key is in building trust is to be able to tolerate people's mistakes in a way that moves the team forward, right? So there's no shame and judgment, but there's, okay, well, what is the lesson? What can we learn? How do we move forward from this and use this as a positive? So a healthy team allows mistakes. During healthy conflict, which is the second level on this triangle, we keep the focus on the topic or the situation or the system, and we want what's best for the team. So during those times when conflict comes, because conflict is in everything, it's deciding, what color paint we want on the walls, excuse me, how to best solve the problem, or how to best, make the customer happy. And so that is the way to have build really strong relational trust, is to have healthy conflict. And it's not personal. It's about the team, it's about the topic or the situation, and we keep the focus on there, and we do not focus on the person, as far as like taking it personal or saying something disparaging to your team member. It keeps the focus on the topic. Building relational trust, we continually have a high regard for the people that we're talking to. So when mistakes are occurring, or when there is conflict and problem solving going on, we continue to have a high regard for the other people. And I wish that our political system and our social system would remember this right now, because there's a lot of debates going on in America right now on a lot of important topics, and we don't have this high regard. We don't have this trust built in. We don't have a high regard for each other. Someone doesn't agree with us, then, it's like they're an idiot, or they're stupid, or, whatever, right? So we need to have a healthy, high regard for the people that we're talking to, have respect for them to build this relational trust. Allowing people their natural consequences will build trust. Able to give as well as receive feedback, and even seeking feedback, right? So I added humble, vulnerable, courageous, asking for help, seeking feedback, self-aware, self-correcting, looking for the lessons. These are all behaviors that build relational trust. It says to the other person, I can trust you, you can trust me, this is what you can count on. So destroying trust, keeping problems away from the other people or the team, trying to handle everything on your own. When you make decisions based on your emotions, when you're crossing boundaries, you have inconsistent reactions. Today it's okay to spend the money, tomorrow it's not okay. When there's deception, manipulation, covering things up, when we're, finagling the numbers or fudging the sheet so that, we can make this, satisfy this requirement, and that just doesn't build trust at all, because people don't know where they're going to stand. Lack of empathy, lack of understanding. Sometimes people don't have the tools to do their job, and if we make assumptions and believe that, well, they just don't care, they just don't, they're not in the right seat in the bus, maybe they don't have the tools, maybe they're afraid to speak up and say, I don't understand, right? So we need to try to understand what's going on at the root and have empathy with them. Again, mistakes are not tolerated. Passing judgment, thinks less of people, negative outlook, thinks about self first and foremost, saving people or the team from their natural, consequences. Someone's not doing their job, and you're like, okay, I'll just do it and just take care of it. It's just faster that way. You're sabotaging their growth. You're sabotaging their dignity. People need to be accountable, and the only way to be accountable is if you allow them to have their natural consequences. It's not being mean, it's being helpful to do that. Gossiping, blaming, complaining, making excuses, overly positive. I love that one. There's a lot of overly positive people right now. Oh, it's going to be fine. That's going to work out fine. It's going to be good. It's going to be, good in the end. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes life just doesn't work out, right? And it's not that the situation is going to work out, it's our character, right? Which is what I talk about in the other series. It's our character, how we handle these situations when things don't work out, right? Because a character trait is only valuable, only has validity when it's used in an opposite situation. And if you want to know more about that, you can check out the other series. But, it's not about the things that happen, it's how we handle it. And I know that's a cliche by now, but it's just so true. So all of this relational trust and all of this functional trust and everything that we're talking about for team building starts inside of us, whatever we bring to the table, right? And so these behaviors are what will build that trust into your team, with your spouse, with your family, coworkers, neighbors, whatever. I hope that was helpful. Let me know what you think in the comments, and there will be more team building videos to come. So I'll see you next time. Thanks.